Ollie is on the chat. We're graced by the presence of Ollie. Let's go ahead and bring him on.
Hi Ethan, how's it going?
Hello, Ollie. Nice to
I like your
meet you and
outfit.
sit and chat with you.
Nice to see you. I like your outfit. Very French with the hat.
Oh, thank you so much. And I think you look wonderful too. We're kind of doing the same thing with our hats, aren't we?
Wasn't planned, but yeah, yeah.
Let me see your profile. Turn to the side. Let me see how it's looking.
Oh, I've actually quit surgery.
No. I mean the beanie. I'm not commenting on your surgery.
Oh, sorry. I
I
thought
want
you
to
meant
see how
my
the
face. I was like,
beanie's sitting. You know.
yeah, no, it's very cool. Oh, how's your
Just
day so far?
so we're just getting set up here a little bit. So tell me, when was your last surgery? I'm curious.
So I actually quit surgery. Well, my last surgery was last April, but I've completely quit, and I'm never going to do surgery again. I had like recently, I had a non-surgical facelift, but it's no surgery; it's threads. Because you can do the same thing these days without the actual surgery. And I was getting to a point even where I would have probably died because
Oh
I've
yeah,
probably
yeah.
gone under anesthetic 3 times every year. I was going under anesthetic, so it was like I
Wow.
could have died. Mm.
Um, I read somewhere that you spent $300,000 on plastic surgery. I've always wondered, like, where do you get? That's a lot of money. Where'd you get that money?
Well, actually, I used to before I started doing, social media and K-pop and stuff. I actually was a successful personal shopper, so I had my own personal shopping business in London. So,
Oh,
I used to dress like really, like very wealthy ladies, celebrities,
oh, okay, like a stylist.
members of royal families. So, you dress them. I was dressing them in like Gucci and Tom Ford and stuff, and you get a very high commission for that. So basically, I did all that, spent a lot of the money on the
I
surgery,
see, I see.
and now I've got like a PR company basically helping influencers get publicity and help them get placements in like television and advertisements and stuff like that, and getting them brand deals. And of course, I do my own social media, and I've got a book as well coming out this year.
Right, we'll talk about that. But did you say you dressed members of the royal family?
Not the British royal family. So I'd actually
Oh,
met with Queen Beatrix of the Netherlands, and she shot with me. She brought some
you did? You hung
handbags
with the
and shoes for
queen?
me. Yeah,
Damn!
no, but I met loads of people. I met, the Prime Minister of Thailand, the ex-Prime Minister. I used to shop with his wives and girlfriends.
Wow, it
Um,
must have been hard to leave
so
that
basically,
behind because you moved to South Korea, and we're all familiar
yeah.
with that whole journey. That must have been hard to leave all that behind if you were doing so well.
Well,
And
no, actually, that was before. So when I lived in Korea as an English teacher,
oh,
that was actually before. So it was basically I was younger. I wanted an experience abroad. Went to do some teaching in Korea, and then after I got back to London, I started like getting into fashion. I had some friends doing fashion, and then over a couple of years, I worked my way up from a stylist to a personal shopper, and
I see.
kind of did that for about 4 or 5 years. Hmm.
So let's talk, Ollie, about. Well, first of all, thank you for coming on. I understand you're promoting a book entitled Gender Madness, which comes out August 1st. So,
Hmm.
congratulations. This is your first book. Very exciting. Gender Madness. Also, you wanted to announce that you're the new spokesperson for Fairness First PAC, Caitlyn Jenner's organization, who
Hmm.
famously ran someone over. But that's actually not the most important thing about Caitlyn Jenner.
Yeah, so basically, I've got a new book coming out August 1st. And basically, a lot of people have, obviously followed my journey over the years. And obviously, I've struggled a lot with identity, and I had some very unhealthy behaviors, basically
Mm,
due to my addiction to surgery, my body dysmorphia, which later turned into gender dysphoria. So I really struggled with that, and it was unhealthy. And, I completely accept my past. I don't try to deny the person I was. And, I had some kind of bizarre behaviors basically
right.
in an attempt to feel validated and to try and feel loved, because I really
So I
resented the
want to
way I
get into
looked.
all those things. um,
Okay.
I'm really interested in your journey from you identified as a trans woman, right?
Mm.
And then you kind of found God and pivoted to becoming a white British Christian man. Is that do I have the synopsis correct?
Yeah, it sounds complicated, but yes, so I'm back to being myself now and like finally found happiness. Hmm.
Okay, okay. So I just want to get a few things straight. So do you still identify as gay?
Yes, so I'm still gay, but
Okay.
I have dated girls before, and I
So
still
you're
I'm kind of more
bisexual, I
bi.
guess. Or
Exactly,
yeah,
yeah.
okay, okay. And you don't identify as Korean anymore. Oh,
No, correct.
obviously. And then also, are you pro gay rights?
Yeah, absolutely.
You
You know,
are.
I'm part of the LGBT community. I support people. My issue is just what's happening to children and also the erosion of women's rights. But you know, I fully support people as an adult making an informed decision to change themselves. But I don't support children being medically transitioned.
So you do support trans people in general.
So absolutely. So I support, you know, people as an adult making a decision if they want to change and they're happy with that. But I feel that unfortunately the trans movement has been hijacked by a small but growing group of trans activists, which are basically pushing kind of an erosion of women's rights. So that's what I really take an issue with. There's a lot of trans people. I have a lot of trans friends. I know what it's like to be trans that really just want to live their lives. And they're actually having a tough time now because of these trans activists. So my issue is with trans activists and not actual trans people.
Okay, so you say, here's a tweet of yours from just the end of last month, not that long ago. You say the goal of the trans movement is not simply to exist. The goal is to erase women, mutilate children, sexualize kids, take away free speech, class pedophilia as an identity, remove parental rights, indoctrinate kids, and they're willing to do violence to obtain their goals. When you say the trans movement, it seems to me that you are speaking generally about trans people having this goal. And when you say trans movement, I don't know exactly what you mean because it seems that most trans people that I've seen, maybe with the exception of Caitlyn Jenner, seems to disagree with this, seems to identify as being parts of the trans movement. So what is the difference between what is the trans movement? Who is a member of that? What is this
So what
organization?
Okay, so what I'm talking about here is the trans movement in the trans activist movement. So the people pushing these ideologies. So we see every single day. Just yesterday, the Texas state capitol was invaded. The trans protesters went there. We see women being attacked at women's rights rallies, physically attacked, and we're seeing this trans activist movement pushing for gender affirming care on kids, which is basically putting 11, 12-year-old kids on very harmful hormones. So that's what I'm talking about. When I talk, I'm not generalizing every single trans person. I'm talking about the current trans movement, which has been hijacked by trans activists. And, you know, I really think that trans people that have been living as a trans person their whole life, they need to speak out against this because the problem is that the LGBT community is being hijacked by these
Well,
radical
let me
people.
ask.
And
Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but I just want
Mhm,
to address things you said already, right? So you say
mhm.
that the people who are demonstrating at the Texas Capitol are part of this trans movement who wants to, sexualize kids and this whole list of things. They were there to protest a bill, SB 14, that would ban gender related treatment for minors. So these guys are, I guess, see that as an affront as being transphobic. But you disagree because what is minor? Anyone 17 and under? Do you believe that ever there would be a 17-year-old that needed gender affirming care?
So minors basically classified anyone under 18. And what these people were protesting against was the fact that Texas is trying to pass a law to ban hormones and puberty blockers and gender reassignment surgery being administered to children, basically. So, you know, I think these people, firstly, you know, that was an unlawful protest. You can't just go into a state capitol and do that. You
Are
know,
you
and
in
if they want to have a
favor? Are you in favor of only lawful protests?
Well, I think, you know, people need to follow the law, and if they want to have a protest, they can have that dialogue. But outside the state house, you can't just storm in a state house. I mean, it's comparable to January 6th when people stormed the Capitol, which was unlawful as well. So I think, you know, these people were not protesting about their rights being taken away. It's the fact that they were protesting against a bill that would have actually protected children. So I think that's really harmful.
Some would say that it's actually harming kids, right? To make it illegal to do this because as you probably know, or I think you did at
Mhm.
one point, is that gender affirming care on people, on children, is exceedingly rare. It's actually so rare that if to express like irreversible gender changes on children is something like I've got the number here. 0.000493% of U.S. children aged 6 through 17 go through irreversible gender changes. So I guess I'm just curious because in the cases where they do undergo it, it's usually to save their life, right? Because they might be suicidal or yeah, right. And they go through like panels, they go through multiple rounds of talking to psychiatrists and doctors. So I guess I'm just curious, why is it you think that this is threatening kids instead of actually helping kids who are at high risk of hurting themselves?
So, Ethan, about 10 years ago, when gender affirming care was performed on whether that was minors or adults, there was a lot of checks and balances. Now it has become so easy. So they don't have the psychiatrist appointments anymore. They don't have, having to wait several years to transition. Now it's a very fast track process. And that's the real issue because many of these teens, and we're seeing thousands of teens being transitioned and put on hormones, the number's really gone up in the last few years. Many of these teens are struggling with other issues. There's a high case, around 1 in 6 of these children have autism. They're being misdiagnosed. There's also kids with depression, bipolar, and they're being told it must be, all of these issues must be because they're in the wrong gender. And they are being fast tracked. There was a case in Missouri at the St. Louis Children's Hospital, and basically a whistleblower unveiled that they only required like one session with a therapist to get a child on hormones and puberty blockers. So that's the issue when a system is being exploited. And there's been trans people forever throughout history. There's so many examples of trans people. But the thing is now is, previously, as difficult as it was, because it's so hard when you're trans to struggle and to think every day that I'm trapped in the wrong body. It is horrific to go through that. But the problem is, years ago, they would have 2 to 3 years they would have to undergo of psychiatrist appointments, doctor's appointments in order to qualify for a transition. Now it has become so easy, and there are thousands of kids being fast tracked and put on hormones, prescriptions. And some kids can now go to states like Colorado or Washington State, which have become sanctuary states, and they don't
I want
even
to
need
stop. I want
parental
to actually
consent.
address what you said about you had said something about Jamie Reed's
Mm.
allegations, right? But that was debunked, right? Because the parents and the children there who actually were attending that facility actually told a completely different story. Have you read their account of that?
Yes, so I saw
Okay.
recently that they did an internal investigation. They said it wasn't true, but I
Oh,
don't believe
that
that because
seems significant.
yes, but I
So
don't
why do
believe
you,
that at all because
bro?
they're trying to cover their back.
You don't believe the internal investigation.
No, because there were multiple parents when the Daily Caller originally did the interview with Jamie Reed. There were multiple parents that said basically their kids weren't looked after once they left the clinic. There were no checks and balances, and there were parents confirming that. So, I believe the investigation has a lot of bias because it's
So
done by the clinic and they're profiting.
so the internal investigation said there was no wrongdoings. The patients said there was no wrongdoings. So I guess I'm just curious. The people who are claiming that there was something wrong there is like the Daily Caller, Tucker Carlson. Are you saying that they don't have a bias?
Well, I mean, a lot of people have a bias and stuff, but we have to look at these gender clinics as a whole. Project Veritas exposed multiple clinics the other day of talking about medically transitioning 8 to 11-year-olds. So we have to acknowledge that this is going on in a lot of clinics, and a lot of these clinics are trying to cover their backs by trying to paint a rosy picture that it's
Did
perfect,
you
it's
say
fine.
Project Veritas?
Yes, they did an
Yeah,
undercover
that's the
investigation.
guy. That's the guy who got ousted for being like a sex criminal and like scam artist, James O'Keefe. That's his organization, right?
He's not part of that organization now. So the
Yeah.
organization that he left, Project Veritas, the original organization, did this
Yeah, they don't have a
investigation
lot of
in
credibility, Veritas. It seems like every investigation they do is just chock full holes of untruths and just blatant lies. I don't think it's a very credible institution for pulling data from.
well, there's multiple organizations like Project Veritas that do
Which other
expose this.
ones?
So Gays Against Groomers, an ambassador for them, they are
Gays
also
against
exposing this
groomers.
happening in clinics.
Gays against groomers. So who's?
Have you heard of that?
I haven't, but who's the groomer then?
So basically, Gays Against Groomers is an organization of hundreds of LGBT people. It includes trans people as well. Basically, this organization is calling out the harms. They're doing investigations of gender clinics, calling out the harms of doing this to kids. Because look,
Where's
we
the
get that
grooming
some
come
kids.
in though? That's the part that I find like really inflammatory because grooming implies that trans people or trans activists, and it's what you said here in this tweet, that they're pedophiles, that they're sexualizing kids. So where's that evidence come from? Because it's one thing to say we're against gender affirming care for minors,
Mhm.
but it's a whole different thing to say, they're grooming.
Well, that word is basically used because we're seeing many drag shows, like adult drag shows, where kids are attending, and it's very sexually explicit. So that is a form of grooming. We also see these kids' books in public libraries and in schools where they're teaching kids about drag and being trans. That's not a subject a kid should hear. So that is a form of grooming because it's
Okay. So
indoctrinating kids.
I
Mhm.
know that there was that one drag show with kids that was kind of a hot button issue. What other examples can you think of drag shows with kids involved where they're being
So
groomed?
there's in the last year there's an investigative journalist, Taylor Hanson. He's exposed at least 20 drag shows in Texas that
Oh,
are
really?
called all
20?
ages drag shows. They're called all ages drag shows, and they're basically doing sex acts on stage. They have breasts. They're doing very inappropriate things. So it's just
So
a
hold on,
kid
sorry,
shouldn't be
Ollie.
there.
You're making so many claims, and I just want to get to each one. You mentioned
Mhm.
an organization, Gays Against Groomers, which
Yeah.
was founded by Jamie Mitchell. Is that right?
Hmm.
So Jamie Mitchell and their partner are ultra MAGA Trump followers, and there's nothing wrong with being a Trump supporter, but they're also anti-transgender. They spread anti-transgender propaganda with QAnon conspiracy theories, and interestingly, the founders are straight. So how is it that they can make a gays against a groomers organization when they themselves are not even gay? That seems disingenuous.
Well, firstly, that's a Wikipedia page. Wikipedia has a lot of bias with the woke people that
So
write on
Jamie
there. But
Mitchell is
actually,
gay.
she's gay. She's a lesbian. All of the people, you have to be LGBT to be a member
How do they check that?
of Gays Against Groomers. So there's
How do
hundreds
they
of trans
verify the
people.
credentials?
No, I mean, if someone says they're gay or bi, you accept that. You don't say, "Oh, can you prove that you're gay? How can you prove that?" So, I mean, Jamie Mitchell is a lesbian. All of the members are lesbians, trans. It's not anti-transgender at all. They support people being trans as an adult, but what they're trying to do is calling out the harm that we're seeing caused to children, and that's the real issue here. Is about protecting kids.
So go back to your claim about grooming. So you brought up the drag show for kids. Is there any other examples, or are we just talking about drag shows? Because I have to assume that the drag shows, even if it's as widespread as Project Veritas claims, which heaven knows how credible they are, there's got to be other examples to make such bold claims as that there's a whole movement trying to sexualize kids.
Yeah, I mean, even if you look at the music industry, you have really shocking performances like Sam Smith, for instance, who is pushing a specific agenda. He has concerts which are allowing all ages. And, if you want to be a musician, do whatever you want, but don't be doing sexually graphic things. He's doing imitating blowjobs. He has, fetish gear on, and there's kids in the audience. So it's not just about drag queens. It's about protecting kids in general. So even if it's Cardi B, I don't think kids should be at a Cardi B concert if she's twerking or doing like something very, very sexual. I
You
think
say
it's just
that's
about
it's
protecting
grooming. I
kids.
mean, you turn on the TV. I mean, you see stuff worse than that, right? On YouTube and
Mhm.
stuff. To say they're
Yeah.
grooming them seems pretty disingenuous and actually really homophobic and transphobic to put this label that they're groomers, because you understand the gravity of such a claim, right?
Well, it's a very loaded word. I get that, but it's not an attack on the LGBT community at all. It's about basically calling out specific cases. It's not an attack on trans people, calling out specific cases where children are being exposed to something that's highly inappropriate and trying to raise awareness of that. So it's not a label that's attached to gay people, lesbians, trans people. It's literally about calling out specific instances
I
of
want to ask you about
harming
something
children.
specific. Actually, since you bring it up, I have seen something
Mhm.
troubling from a trans person that I thought was
Mhm.
kind of gross. They were selling. It was like a kid's T-shirt with a trans person on it, and then they had like kids' toys with trans people on it, and it was kind of gross and groomy. Have you seen anything like that before?
I've seen T-shirts that the Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota wore, "Protect Trans Kids" with a knife on it. Things
Mm.
like that. I've seen T-shirts that says "Protect Trans Rights" with AK-47s on it and stuff. And I don't think that's helpful messaging for, and that's just trans activists, by the way, Ethan. This is a small number of people, and that's who I'm calling out. That's who Gays Against Groomers are calling out. It's not the trans community as a whole. Specific trans activists who have have hijacked the trans movement.
So actually, you know what's interesting, Ollie? If you go to your website right now, your merch website, I was actually talking about your merch. You are actually selling kids' lunch boxes with a picture of you depicted as a trans woman, and you're selling
No,
it.
that's not as a trans woman.
Oh,
That's
it's
not as a
not.
trans woman. That's just a K-pop picture of me.
I had a feeling you would say that because here it is, you wearing that design, and it's pretty obvious to tell that this is depicting you. This is
Yes,
from just
correct.
like a month ago, and this is when you were
Wearing my
trans.
merch.
Yeah.
hmm
So do you think it's appropriate to sell this to kids?
Well, it's a lunchbox with a picture of a K-pop cartoon. There's
Well, it's
nothing
you as a
inappropriate with that.
trans. It's you as a trans woman.
It's me as a K-pop star. It's nothing to do with being trans or not. That's just a cartoon of me as a K-pop star. So it's not.
But at the
That's not inappropriate.
right, but at the time you were a trans woman.
Correct. At the time, I was a trans woman, but
So
there's nothing
so
inappropriate
it's you
with
as a
that.
trans woman.
That I was a trans woman at the time. That picture does not depict me as a trans woman. It depicts me as a K-pop star. But
I find
it
that
doesn't depict
interesting that you're
anything.
willing to make that separation when you're making such general claims about groomers and stuff. Because to me, by your own definition, this is pretty groomy. And even if you go, and this is all
It's an
on.
innocent picture.
Well, hold on,
It's an
Ollie. Hold
innocent
on one
picture.
sec. Even if you go on your website right now, you're selling the same graphic, Ollie London, Ollie Merch Squad, as you depicted as a trans woman. And if you look at the available sizes, it's just kids. 3 to 4. Do you think it's appropriate for a 3 to 4-year-old to buy this shirt?
Yeah, of course. Any K-pop fan, if they want to buy my merch, they're absolutely entitled to. There's nothing inappropriate with that merch at all. It's a
That is a
cartoon.
trans woman, Ollie. You're not understanding
You're
your own
clutching at
logic.
straws. You're clutching at straws.
How am
That's
I?
a
You were a
cartoon.
okay. Hold on. Let's follow this through. You were a trans woman when you made this. There's a picture of you wearing it. It's obviously
Yeah,
you
correct.
as a trans woman. Here's you as a trans woman, and here's you as a trans woman on the shirt, on a kid's shirt. How am I clutching at straws?
Well, you're clutching at straws. It's an innocent cartoon. It doesn't say anything about
The
indoctrinating
tongue
children.
is
It's
somewhat
literally a
sexual.
cartoon.
How the tongue is out like that, it's a little disturbing.
Ethan, come on. I'm doing a K-pop pose. You're just clutching at straws.
No, why is the tongue out? I find that a little provocative.
Ethan, it's a cartoon. You're just trying to make
Well,
a
I
joke out
don't
of
know
it.
because you're well. No, I'm not trying to make a joke. I think this is a somewhat serious issue to resolve here because if you no, I'm being serious, Ollie, because let's at least be consistent. If we're going to accuse people of grooming kids, and which you have made a short-lived but somewhat profitable career of doing, then I think we need to, we need to get on top of this. I just don't think it's appropriate to be selling lunch boxes with a trans woman
if that
on it.
lunchbox, Ethan, if that lunchbox had something inappropriate or sexual, that would be wrong. But this is an innocent cartoon of me doing a K-pop pose. There's nothing wrong with that particular picture. If it was inappropriate or in a sexual way, that would be completely wrong. And of course, I would never sell that. But that's an innocent drawing of a cartoon, Ethan.
Let's say a kid's at a drag queen show. That's grooming. And let's say they are selling lunch boxes to the kids of with a picture of a drag queen on it, doing a cute pose or whatever, right? Not sexual, but they're in drag. Do you think it's appropriate for a kid to carry that lunchbox?
Well, I think it's appropriate if the kid's at a drag show that's inappropriate, because some drag shows are generally not inappropriate, but
Okay,
a lot
so
of them are becoming
okay, that's
sexualized.
interesting. So some drag shows are appropriate and some aren't.
Correct. It's about, if you're going to do anything in front of kids, it should be PC. It should not have anything sexual. But sadly, a lot of these shows are doing sexual things, so kids should not be there. If the merch is there and it's a show that's sexual, they shouldn't be there in the first place.
Okay, this is interesting. So you're saying it is okay for kids to go to drag shows?
I'm not saying that at all. I don't think they should in
Hold
general,
on.
but I'm just saying
if they're not sexual, and I would assume it's not because it's for kids, right? I mean, if they're doing sexual stuff, I would consider that. Obviously, everyone would consider that inappropriate. But I believe you've just said drag shows are safe for kids. In fact, you would even be okay. Well, hold on. You even said you'd be okay with them carrying a drag show lunchbox.
No, look, I just don't think kids should be anywhere that is putting ideas into their heads. If a show is innocent, that's obviously better than it being a sexual show. But I still don't think kids should be exposed to gender ideology.
So, but what about this lunchbox you're selling to kids?
That has nothing to do with any kind of ideology. It's a K-pop picture, so
Yeah, but
it's
you're in
I.
drag in the picture. Or I mean, you're
I'm not in
trans.
drag.
Well, you're
I'm
trans.
not
Sorry,
in
yeah, you're
drag.
right. You're not in drag. I misspoke. You're trans. You're a woman. You're expressing yourself as a woman on the box.
It's just a cartoon, Ethan. I don't know why you keep going on about it's a
It's
cartoon.
just a cartoon. I mean, I feel like you're trying to downplay the significance of this, Ollie. I just afraid that some of some of the people that you associate with might consider this grooming by your own standard. I'm just looking out for you and your reputation.
It's just silly, Ethan. It's an innocent cartoon. If it was an
Okay,
inappropriate picture, that would be wrong.
okay. What do you make of this picture? Are these kids in danger? Your thoughts?
But I haven't seen the video of that particular show, and it depends what book they're reading. If the drag queen is
It
teaching
appears
them
to
about gender
be
ideology,
depicting some fish, a couple of fish in the ocean. It seems like
That's the rainbow fish.
the rainbow fish. It seems to be the rainbow fish, Ollie.
well, I think a lot of these books are pushing even subtle messages on gender ideology, trying to tell kids you should be trans and become LGBT, and kids should make that decision on their own. So if that book is teaching them about transitioning or becoming a drag queen, that's inappropriate, and
It's the
that's the
rainbow
issue with.
fish.
Yes, but I haven't read the book. I can't see what the book is. So, based on that one picture, does that book contain subtle messaging that's trying to tell kids to change their gender when they shouldn't be thinking about things like that? And, in Florida, they've obviously banned books in the classroom that teach gender ideology. And there's a lot of books, kids' books. There's a book called The Gay ABCs, and that pushes gender ideology for 2-year-olds. It's 2+. And I don't think that's appropriate for a kid that just should be reading kids' books that are completely innocent. They shouldn't
But
even
what do you
be
make of
kind
this?
of.
What do you make of this lunchbox, though?
Why do you keep going back to the lunchbox? It's literally
Because it's got a picture of a trans woman on a kid's lunchbox.
got a picture of a K-pop star on the lunchbox.
Who's the K-pop star? Who is the K?
Come on,
It's
Ethan,
you, right?
It's me.
Yeah, it's
would
you.
you buy
As
that
a tra-
lunchbox
and
for
you
your
and this
kids?
K-pop star is a trans woman, right?
I was trans at the time. The
Right.
image doesn't necessarily depict any
Did
kind
that
of.
photo of you? So is
Not
this?
even it's not even a photo of me. It's literally a
It's a
cartoon. I
cartoon,
had an
right?
anime cartoon drawn of me.
Right.
Would you buy it for your kids?
I mean, I
Would you
wouldn't
find it
want to.
inappropriate?
I wouldn't just because I don't want to support you financially. But
Oh, thanks.
but theoretically, I don't think I'd have a problem with. No, I wouldn't have a problem with my children looking up to a trans person. Of course not. What would be wrong with that?
No, and Ethan, look, I don't have a problem with trans people at all. I'm just saying that certain things, when it comes to gender ideology, if transgenderism is being pushed on young kids in preschool or even elementary school when they shouldn't be thinking about that, I think it's wrong to expose them to that. I think it's
Exposing
important
them to
kids
trans
discover who they
people.
are.
Exposing them to trans
Sorry?
people, like this lunchbox is. Right.
You're really obsessed with that lunchbox.
Well,
You need to get one.
but I think it's a really important point that you're not, coming to terms with. We're exposing kids to a trans woman. Don't you think that's wrong? Why is it still on your website, at least,
It's come on, Ethan. I don't know what to say. It's a cartoon of a
Right,
K-pop star,
right.
and it's very innocent. It's just like a little anime drawing. It's nothing. If I was doing something inappropriate, if I had, protect trans kids on there, that would have a message. That would have a loaded gender ideology message. But it literally says Ollie Squad with a cartoon of me doing the peace sign. It's like super cute, super innocent. Just like most K-pop stars are like super cute. There's nothing wrong with that.
I mean, aren't you making like the Higo face a little bit?
What do you think? I should make it more masculine?
No, the Higo face is like some kind of hentai thing, isn't it?
I have no idea.
That's when
I
you
don't watch
cross your
anime.
eyes and stick out your tongue.
Oh, really? Well, my eyes are
You don't
wide
know
open.
about that?
My eyes are wide open. I
Hold
do
on,
watch
hold on,
some
hold on,
anime,
hold on.
but I don't
Hold on.
know.
You don't know about the Higo face?
No.
I don't believe you. Come on.
No, I watch anime like I watch Attack of the Titans and
That's
stuff,
straight
but I'm not
cap, my
familiar with.
brother. This is it, and you can see the resemblance, right? Here's the Ahigo face.
Go on.
It's like a hentai reference. But
Okay.
you see the resemblance, right?
Can you put them side by side?
Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to.
I mean, that's quite a cute drawing.
Right, but that's like a woman like orgasming is what that is.
Well,
Or like
Well, that's not
lustful.
what I
It's like a lustful kind of sexual gratification.
Ethan, you're
face.
really clutching at straws.
Am
I'm
I?
literally like, I've got my eyes open, I'm doing the peace sign, and
What
you're
is-
trying to dissect it and say this, honestly.
Right. It just seems to me that even as a trans person, you shouldn't be exposing kids to that. It seems like you're shoving gender ideology down kids' throats by selling them a lunchbox with a trans woman on it. You don't
I
see
just
my
don't-
point at all? You don't get it?
No, I don't. if I would see your point completely. If, for instance, it had messaging on there, like some political, because I don't think kids should be exposed to politics either. Political or gender ideology message. If that was on there, that would be different. If it was a sexually suggestive image, but this is literally an innocent cartoon. I've got my eyes open. I'm doing the peace sign. You could not get innocent. What do I need to do, Ethan, like to please people? Do I have to like close my eyes?
Well, I personally don't necessarily have a problem. What is your fascination with the eye wideness? I haven't said anything about that.
About what? Sorry.
You said, "What do I have to close my eyes?" I didn't know what that meant. You kept mentioning about like the eye wideness of how wide it is. I don't know why you keep bringing that up.
No, I'm just saying that. Look, in the picture, my eyes. It's got very. It's not even me, by the way. It's a cartoon, but the eyes are very wide open,
Right.
like
Of you. It's
glistening.
a
I'm just saying, like, what's wrong with having my eyes open? Like, we're human beings. We have to have
I
our
don't
eyes
know why
open.
you're
Like, would
talking
it be
about
better if
eyes
I closed
open.
my eyes?
I don't know. I don't you know what that means, Ollie. Here's a reference to popular culture with the Ahigo face. It's, like kind of an e-girl thing. You're probably aware of that. With
Well, I'm not an e-girl, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah, but you're on the internet and it's from anime, which you seem to be. Okay, but let's move
No,
on.
I do know anime and stuff. I don't know anything to do with that pose. Literally, I've got my mouth open like this. Peace. I always have my mouth open. Like,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
come
Yeah.
on.
Let me see that again. Looks really natural when you do it.
Thanks.
Yes. Yes. Yes, girl. So are you so the trans but you identify as a male now. You're not trans. We're over that.
No, I'm like, well, basically, I got to a point where I was going to probably die from all the surgery I was doing. And, I was really mentally struggling, had a lot of mental health struggles based on a variety of issues, which I talk about in my book, from when I was being bullied very severely as a kid. I was always told I was like ugly or I looked like a monster or, I was more feminine or I had man boobs. So I just used to have all those things and it left me with traumas. So it kind of messed up my head. And as an
Okay.
adult, I didn't deal with that in the way that I should have. I should have had therapy. I should have spoke to someone. Instead, it was almost like self-harming. So all this crazy surgery was me kind of lashing out at the bullies, and it was very, very destructive for me and for other people. So
So
I'm glad to be over that.
do you think that people who are bullied are at a higher chance of becoming trans?
Yes, definitely. So I talk about this in my book. There's a lot of studies. There was a study in Finland by the top transgender clinic that was basically transitioning a lot of kids, and they said I think it was around 45% of the kids had experienced severe bullying. So that led to their gender dysphoria identity. But
So
there's
so
also the other side
your
where
theory is that the bullying leads to the dysphoria, not the dysphoria leading to the bullying, which would
no,
be more
I was
logical.
No, I was just about to say as well, but there is also the flip side of that where the kids are being bullied because of their identity, because maybe a boy is more feminine or a girl is more like a tomboy. So they're also being bullied for that. But in certain studies, the one in Finland at Tampere University, they found that there was a significant correlation between a kid being bullied and then the onset of their gender dysphoria coming afterwards rather than before. But, of course, it works both ways.
I have that theory you're citing in front of me. Let's
Tampere University, Finland. Yeah.
Here it is. Let's read the conclusion. Here. There's the abstract and everything. Let's see. The conclusion says gender identity, especially non-binary identity, is associated with both being bullied and perpetrating bullying, even when a range of variables, including internal stress and involvement in bullying and the opposite role, are taken into account. This suggests that bullying during adolescence may serve as a mechanism of maintaining heteronormality, which I think what that means is that the bullying actually results in people rejecting their transness in favor of heteronormality. So it seems to be saying the opposite actually of what you've claimed it said. Do you see what I'm referring to?
Yeah, no,
Heteronormality?
I see that. I
Yeah.
see that
Okay.
article. That if you actually read the full study, which I've
That's the
read the full study,
conclusion.
you can find it on the National Institute of Health.
Oh no, this is the
Basically,
study. Yeah, no, this is the study. It's the
yeah,
.gov.
Finland. Yeah.
Yeah, this is it. And then this is the author's conclusion right there. I mean, that's pretty much that. This is the one you're talking about. Do you disagree?
Yes, but look. The study's also saying it's associated with being bullied and being the perpetrator. So it's basically saying that
Yes,
either.
but the message. This is the last sentence. So let's read this together carefully.
Mhm.
It suggests that bullying during adolescence may serve as a mechanism of maintaining heteronormality. Do we understand what that says?
No, I get what it's saying. It's
Right.
basically saying that some of these kids that are being bullied will maintain their original identity because of the bullying. Correct. But the study also, if you read the full study, the study also speaks. There's a high correlation between. There's two different findings in the study. There's a finding that around 45% of the kids are bullied, and that causes the gender dysphoria. And there's also a part of the study which also says, like the conclusion is finding that some of these kids are bullied because of their gender dysphoria, and it makes it worse.
So
So
it
there's two
seems
different
like
findings.
if two outcomes are possible, then it doesn't seem that interesting. I wonder why you bring it up.
Well, no, read the full study. It also talks about
This is
the
it,
correlation
man.
between
I mean,
autism.
this is the author. They wrote the conclusion right here. This is their.
That's a small summary
Okay,
on
here, but
Yahoo
that's the
News. If you actually
author.
read,
That's the author. That's their conclusion.
correct.
Right.
But if you read in the
Who
National
better to
Institute of
draw a
Health,
conclusion than the author of the study?
no, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if you, I've read the full study
You
multiple
have
times on the
multiple
National
times.
Institute of Health. Mm-hmm.
According to this, bullying prevents more kids from transitioning. Do you believe that we need more bullying?
No, I'm an advocate against bullying. I think whoever gets bullied, it's so wrong. I've been bullied myself, and I'm an
But
advocate
if
for trying to
bullying
stop that.
results
Nobody
in less
deserves to be bullied.
transitioning, then that, according to what you're saying, is the best outcome for these kids.
No, I don't agree at all. No kid, even if a kid is feminine or a girl is a tomboy, they should not get bullied. No one should get bullied. They should be provided with support. But if somebody wants to transition, I'm not against people transitioning. I just don't think it's right as a kid because a lot of these kids are going through so many issues during that time. They are not in the right frame of mind to make an informed consent
If a
decision. Look,
child is
Ethan.
suicidal, do you believe that they should transition?
So there's a lot of clinics and doctors that use this argument. There's a clinic called Permanate in California.
Kaiser Permanente.
Yes, that's it. Thank you. Yeah, so basically, they have used with multiple people that have since detransitioned, Chloe Cole and Layla, another detransitioner. They basically told them your kids are going to commit suicide if you don't transition them. But what they said afterwards is they actually felt worse 6 months down the line after their transition because they've got hormones in their body, they've got puberty blockers,
Surely
and
you
they even had double
understand
mastectomies.
that the vast majority of people that transition don't regret it. I think it's like 95%, 99%. Are you aware of that stat?
You don't hear the cases of the detransitions
Are
because
you
the gender
aware,
clinic.
Ollie, that 99% of kids that transition do not regret it?
No, I don't support that statistic. I think it's wrong
Okay.
because these
From
clinics.
from what from what authority do you disprove that statistic?
Well, look, these clinics make these studies. They don't even do follow-up studies. There's an example of a
Do you not
clinic
trust
called the
studies?
Tavistock.
Because you just told me to read one.
Look, what I'm saying is the gender clinics make billions of dollars every year. Their studies are skewed and biased.
In a
They
review
don't
of
do follow-up.
27 studies involving almost 8,000 teens and adults who had transgender surgeries, mostly in Europe, US, and Canada, 1% on average expressed regret. For some, regret was temporary, but a small number went on to detransition. But that's 1%. That seems like a very small amount to be singularly focused on. And this is 27
No.
studies, so this is a massive kind of conclusion, right? A scientific conclusion, a consensus, if you would.
Yes, but what I'm saying is there's a clinic, for instance, Tavistock Clinic, which was the main clinic in the UK. They were actually exposed. They were doing studies as well. They
Is
weren't
that what we were
bothering
talking
to
about in the
check with the
beginning?
detransitioners. They didn't bother to check with the detransition. They didn't check how the hormones
Oh,
were
I know
affecting
what
them
you're
over a year.
talking about. That English one for
Yeah.
yeah. So that one, if I recall, I looked into that. People say it was shut down. It was actually, wasn't it?
It's being
They
shut down.
right,
It's
but
still open.
they're actually making a bigger one so they can serve more needs. I actually, so it's not really being shut down actually.
That
Say
one
the name
is
again.
it's still,
What is it?
it's called Tavistock.
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 Yeah.
So that one's actually being shut down this year because basically the National Health Service, which is basically looks after all the hospitals in the UK for the government, they actually said that there were a lot of ethical violations and stuff, and they also changed their policy based on what happened at that clinic via internal investigations. They found that many of these kids were being pushed to transition without having checks on their mental health, and they're basically being pushed into it in fast track
Do
very
you think it's
quickly.
significant though that of the patients, of the actual people who that transition, only 1% regret it? Do you you're not acknowledging that?
I don't. I don't trust studies, even
Why?
if you're saying it's 27 studies.
27 studies. Then why did you tell me to read this one, Ollie? You use studies when it's convenient for you, but you don't when it goes against your thesis. I don't understand your consistency with studies. Do we like them or no?
What I'm trying to say, Ethan, is the gender clinics are very, very powerful.
Do we? No,
They
no, no,
control
Ollie.
a
Do
lot of
we
studies.
like studies or not? All studies or no
I like
studies?
studies.
Oh, we do.
I like studies,
You do
but
like studies.
you have to always look at bias. The clinic in Finland was a transgender clinic that made the study, so they had different findings to the many of the clinics in America that are saying there's a low detransition rate. But there are thousands of detransitioners out there. They're just not sharing their stories because of fear of being attacked, and they get abuse every single day from trans activists. So there's thousands of kids out there that are. There's 50,000 detransitioners on a Reddit subreddit forum speaking about detransitioning, but they're scared to come out and talk about it because they're going to get attacked. So there's a lot
So
of people hiding.
you seem to be in denial, Ollie, that the vast, vast majority of these people, let's say there's a bias. Let's say instead of 1%, it's 10% regret it. And that's a huge deviation. So I'm giving you a lot of doubt here. If 10% only regret it, do you think that on whole, of the 90% who don't regret it and who had what they consider life-changing health care, why would you seek to deny them life-changing health care? When
Well, Ethan,
they say this saved my life.
Children can't get tattoos. Children can't buy cigarettes or buy alcohol. So how on earth can they consent to doing something they don't even understand about? We have to look at many of these kids. They don't understand. They don't think about the future. Like if a kid changes their body, they have gender reassignment surgery or take hormones, they might not be able to have a baby when they're older. They don't think about those things because they're kids. So the issue is just we shouldn't be doing this to kids. It should happen, as an adult, they can make informed consent. But even with some of the parents
Hey,
agreeing to
Ollie,
it,
do you know how many kids between the age of 6 and 17 went through irreversible surgery in the United States?
I know the number rises every year. Now it will be
Okay.
several thousand.
So the number of patients, of children between 6 and 17 who went through irreversible surgery in the United States, what was the years on that one?
3 years, 2019 through 2021.
So this is the most comprehensive data we have, and this comes straight from the government stats. It was 250 per year. Does that seem significant to you?
That's completely incorrect because
Based on
there's
what?
a clinic in Oregon. It's in the thousands now. There's a clinic in Oregon that's done at least
The
I believe
thousands?
300
Is that
per year.
significant? 1,000? I mean, we have
No,
50
more
million
than a
children in
thousand.
the United States. Do you think
Well,
1,000 is statistically significant?
there's thousands, and this study probably only takes into account people on Medicaid or Medicare. There are also the parents of patients that pay out of pocket. So
Even if
I
it's
think this study
thousands, Ollie, let's say it's
would,
thousands. Is this
would
significantly significant when we have 51 million children in the United States between ages 6 and 17?
it's significant even because it's growing every day. If you look at any chart or graph of kids being medically transitioned, it's now in the tens of thousands across the US. California has thousands alone. Florida, before Governor DeSantis banned, there's a clinic, Dr. Gallagher, who performs at least five surgeries on minors every month. So that's just one
Can
clinic.
you
So
cite
it's in
those
the thousands.
numbers? Is it possible to get a reference?
Dr. Gallagher is a clinic in Florida, and she operates on minors.
Okay. And so, what is wrong with the number going up? I mean, let's say it goes up from 1,000 to 2,000 in the whole United States. I mean, so obviously,
So,
one would
mhm.
assume, right, Ollie, as people become more educated and aware of transgenderism, and we've seen the same thing with homosexuality, which, of course, you are a member of the LGBT community. In the 50s, as being gay became more acceptable, you saw the numbers significantly rising during that time. I'm sure you know that, right?
Yeah, of course,
So
because
what's
it
the
became more
difference?
acceptable.
What is the difference between the hysteria that took place then about there was, on the right that they're turning our kids gay? That turned out not to be true. You agree?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely,
good, good,
absolutely
good. So hold
correct.
on to that. So now today we see the same graph going up of trans kids getting surgery or gender affirming care or whatever. So why is it that you today can draw a conclusion that was the same conclusion in the 50s that you disagree with, that trans kids are being influenced societal to become trans. It seems to be a glaring contradiction in logic.
It's not just random based on the fact that it's easier for people to come out these days or identify in different ways. It is a concerted push, Ethan. So there's now
That's what
over
they said
60,
about gay people.
Ethan, there's now over 60 pediatric gender clinics that have opened within the last 15 years across the US. They weren't there before, so they are profiting from this. They're opening clinics because they know they can profit. So when they push, through popular culture or push transitioning via TikTok trends, they are profiting from that. So it benefits them if society and children are being confused and indoctrinated in schools or via social media, because they can get more patients through their door.
So that's good, but let's focus on this issue that I want to nail down. They said that gay kids were being influenced to be gay. You disagree with that now, and you're one of the people that says kids are being influenced to become trans, and it's the same curve. Why is that curve not just the result of it becoming more acceptable in society? Because it's the same curve, right? Same curve.
It's a huge curve, and it's really in the last 5 years since TikTok came about. We're seeing so many. There's about 2.2 billion.
What does it matter how they become aware of it? I'm telling you, it's the same curve.
What I'm trying to tell you is that there are influences now that didn't exist 10 years ago that are pushing kids. For instance, TikTok, there's about 2.2.
So TikTok is turning people trans, where back in the 50s, people said it was like rock and roll music, it was movies, it was hippie movements. That wasn't accessible to the generation before them. I don't see the difference.
What I'm saying is that kids are being exposed to influences that they didn't have before.
Same in the 50s.
Kids are being on...
The same in the 50s. The kids who were coming out as gay were also exposed to things that weren't accessible to generations before them.
Well, I don't agree with that. They didn't have phones back then. Kids are now being pushed trends, and the AI algorithm recognizes a kid's vulnerabilities, and they push videos.
Music, popular music.
Music.
Pop music pop music was something that was rock and roll was something that was new back then.
No, correct. And you could also argue that in the 80s, more people came out because music like George Michael was, and songs about freedom and stuff. So then
why are you concluding that TikTok is making people trans? I don't understand the logic. You just contradicted yourself.
No. What I'm saying is in the last 5 years, there is an increase in gender clinics opening because they are exploiting these children that are being pushed trends. There's a lot of lobby groups, Ethan. The Human Rights Campaign is a massive lobby group. They're going around.
Ollie, you were trans before TikTok.
I've struggled with gender dysphoria for all of my life.
Before TikTok.
Correct, but yes, but my identity struggles came about because I was using social media too much. And
Ollie, you were born in 1990. You're not that much younger than me. When I grew up, there was no social media. I don't believe you probably had social media until you were in your 20s, well into your 20s.
Yeah, correct. And the reason I struggled with my identity was because of bullying in childhood. But then I only transitioned as an adult.
But bullying in childhood, we established from the report that you told me to read that bullying in childhood results in less people transitioning.
Sorry, say it again.
The study you sent me about bullying, the conclusion was that bullying results in less people transitioning. So you says it's a result of social media. Well, you didn't have social media. Then you says it was a result of bullying. But this study you told me to read says bullying reduces the amount of people who transition. So how is it that you were trans before, outside of all of these influences that are turning people trans?
Well, firstly, I'm an individual, so I'm one person. So my experience is not reflective of every single person that becomes trans out there. But the thing is, I became trans as an adult because I really struggled with my identity throughout my whole life. And yes, I did get bullying. Every case is different as well. Some people are bullied because of their gender identity. Some people are not. So every single case is different. But the reason I became trans was, you follow my journey, the Korean stuff. That was me trying to find myself and trying to, fit in because I hated the way I looked.
If your journey is a personal one, which I totally understand, then what gives you the right to project your personal experience onto others?
Well, I speak to detransitioners every day. I speak to parents. I speak to women.
So that assumes a bias, Ollie. You're talking all day to detransitioners. We've also established, because I think, like studies, or I don't know if we decided, I think you said you like studies, because 27 of them made a consensus that 99% of people that transition don't regret it. So if you spend all day talking to the 1% that do regret it, don't you believe that underlies a bias?
Well, no, I don't believe it, because I
Really?
talk to all sorts of people. I talk to parents that have trans kids, and they're trying to navigate through that. And the general consensus with everyone I speak to, because no, I'm not right wing or left wing. I'm just very much in the center. I'm just trying to help people, using my platform to try and help people. The general consensus is we shouldn't be doing this to kids, and there generally is a concerted push over the last 5 years to medically transition children. If kids want to experiment, if a girl wants to be a tomboy, nobody has a problem with that. If they want to become trans as an adult, that's on them. But the issue that I talk about every day, I talk with parents, I talk with all these detransition, is when this happens to kids. That's the issue I'm speaking about.
Right,
it's
but that's so
not about
rare.
people being trans.
Let me ask you another question, just to pivot a little bit. I'm one of the people that would say Ollie London is willing to do anything for attention. You have probably some kind of, I don't want to diagnose you, I'm not a psychiatrist, but there is some craving for attention, clearly, right? Good or bad. You said your pronouns were core Ian, you said you were going to get your penis size reduced so that you could look more, you could be a more authentic Korean. I mean, these are not serious things. You seem to be a provocateur. Is it possible that you are participating in this right-wing grift because, one, it's making you a lot of money, and two, it's getting you a lot of attention? Is that possible, that you actually don't care and that your beliefs are empty? Is that possible?
No, absolutely not. So when I struggled with my identity for years, I generally was struggling, and I was lashing out at bullies. And the more I would get bullied online by YouTubers and people on TikTok, the more I would act crazy, because I was trying to feel validated and loved. And it was very unhealthy.
The conservative movement has offered you quite an open hand. They're very glad to be using you as a mouthpiece against trans people. So it must feel good to be being accepted from somebody, even if it is at the detriment of many people who are at risk, trans people. It must feel nice to have people supporting you.
No, it's nothing to do with that at all. I could have easily continued doing K-pop. I could have focused on TikTok, which, I used to really enjoy doing TikTok. I'm not the best singer. I like to make fun, entertaining videos. I could have stuck with that. In actual fact, when I detransitioned, I lost so many brand deals. I lost all my invites to New York Fashion Week. I was front row every season.
Yeah, but now you're on Tucker Carlson. I mean, that's the biggest show in the world, or it was. Rest in peace to the GOAT.
Yeah, he was the original GOAT. But no, it's nothing to do with that.
So you say it's not possible that you are just doing this for attention. If we go back, here's a recording of you saying that you're using the BLM movement for attention and for cameos. Here, listen.
Millions. So it's basically every time I do a music video, it's like, if it's 1 million, it's £1,000. So if I just keep releasing music videos, that's like enough. And then also because I've been a lot on Twitter, there's been so many people talking about me on Twitter because I'm supporting the Black Lives Matter and protests and stuff. So I had 200,000 views on the video. So because of that as well, I'm getting a lot of requests. So it's just, I'm just staying relevant in the news, on TV and stuff, because the more exposure I have, if I'm trending on Twitter or whatever on TV, then the more cameos I get. So yeah,
so here you say you're supporting BLM to stay relevant and because it gets you more cameos. Have you been getting more cameos since you went right wing?
Well, firstly, that audio was from a number of years ago. It was edited deceptively by somebody that was completely uncredible, and just basically desperate for attention.
It's your voice, correct?
It's my voice, but it was edited deceptively to try and make me look bad.
So what's the deception?
So I'm not doing any of this. What I'm doing now is to try and help people. Previously, Ethan, I'll admit it. Previously, I had some very unhealthy behavior.
Deceptive. I'm open to hearing you out. How is it deceptive?
I'm explaining. So, previously I had unhealthy behavior where I was generally like thinking, oh, how many likes can I get? How many views can I get? Because I was in a really crazy mental health place. And, the more surgery I would get, I would feel worse about myself. So I would try and be validated via online views and things. But in fact,
unlike
talking
now.
to BLM, actually, no, I'm not doing it now. If I wanted to, Ethan,
which is why you're on the show.
No, if I wanted to get attention and stuff, I would stick to doing TikToks. I would stick to doing my K-pop music videos.
You're getting a lot more attention right now. I mean, you're getting a lot of attention right now. In fact, you wrote a whole damn book about it, Gender Madness.
Well, what I'm doing now is because I've actually come to a realization that I have had some very unhealthy behaviors in the past, and I'm trying to remedy that. because I can't sleep at night when I think, have I done something bad? Have I been a bad influence? So I'm actually trying to remedy that and devote my
Well, I hate
time
to tell you, if
activism.
that's what you're concerned about, you're going to feel really bad when your next phase comes around and you realize that
It's
you
not
were
a phase, Ethan.
the mouthpiece for really hateful people.
Ethan, it's not a phase, and I'm not a mouthpiece for anyone. I'm literally just trying to speak up about issues that I have finally woken up to see what's going on in the
It
world.
seems
And I'm
to
actually
me,
thinking,
Ollie, that if we look at all of your different iterations of your personality, the one consistent thing is a need for attention.
you could say that about Trisha Paytas, who was your best friend and you used to do a podcast
I do say
with.
that. I mean, yeah, I would say that about Trisha Paytas. Sure. Are you like
she had
Trisha
different
Paytas?
identities, but she had a wake up call, and then she realized that she could be an influence to others, and she's really a positive girl. She's doing amazing things at the moment, and I had a wake up
Trisha
call
was
as well
a chicken
because
nugget, I believe. Do you empathize with that, Ollie, as a former trans person?
Ethan, I'm vegetarian, so I wouldn't empathize with her being
So you're saying you're
nugget.
like yeah, and congratulations on that. We support that. Ollie, do you believe you're like Trisha Paytas?
No, not at all. I'm not comparing myself to her. I'm just saying that she had a lot of identity struggles. She had some unhealthy behaviors. I had some unhealthy behaviors. I struggled, but I'm remedying that now. I'm working hard every
Like
day
Trisha.
to try and be a better person, to try and help people. And that's what I'm focused on. So people can call me what they want. I'm not a mouthpiece for anyone. I'm literally trying to help make the world a better place.
Let's pivot. This came about when you found God, right? And you can fill in the blanks here. You were confused. You were a transgender woman. You were selling kids' lunch boxes depicting a trans woman on it. That's pretty low by your own definition. And then you were walking around and you found God. You entered a church and then you realized, hey, this is a cool vibe, maybe.
Well, no, actually, before that, I started to go to therapy. So basically, I lost a lot of my friends. People thought I was really crazy. And I was very mentally unwell with all of these different crazy identities that I struggled with. So I actually started therapy first, and I started going to sessions twice a week. And then they actually told me, you need to speak about this. You need to find a community that's accepting, non-judgmental, and kind.
So hold on. Your therapist told you that you're not trans?
No, my therapist didn't tell me I wasn't trans, but they said if I'm having issues and struggling with who I am, perhaps I should find a community that's very welcoming and might make me feel like I can belong. Take some time off social media. So they didn't tell me not to be trans. It's nothing to do with that. So they literally told me to try and find myself.
So you took a break off social media, and then you took your time to find God and find your new self.
I stopped spending hours and hours a day on TikTok and YouTube, which was, messing up my mind. And I actually left my phone at home. I would go to therapy sessions, and then I started going to church. And it made me realize, there's more to life than just being online or whatever. I need to actually make a difference in this world. And I've spoken to so many people that are concerned at the direction the world's going in. And, if I can try and help parents and help women and stuff and speak up for people, then I can feel good.
I want to show you this clip from an interview from Piers Morgan. Okay,
lots of pictures here of you as a woman. So how long ago was that? Was that quite recently?
That was actually at London Fashion Week, so that was literally a month ago. So kind of a drastic change.
So you went from trans woman at Fashion Week a month later to being on Piers Morgan denouncing the trans movement. When you said get off. Take your time and talk and figure out who you are, that all happened within a month.
No, actually, since I originally transitioned, I felt great for a couple of months. And then I really started to question it. I started to think, okay, I can even do more surgery to make myself physically become a transgender woman, or I can take a step back. So I was having a lot of thoughts of regret, but it was too late at that point. I'd already done facial feminization. I'd already changed myself. I was very confused. So I'd been having those thoughts for a number of months. And then within a month from that particular picture being taken, I actually detransitioned.
So tell me about finding God. Tell me about when you were in the church and you had an awakening.
Well, I'd lost a lot of friends. I lost a lot of loved ones because they thought my behavior was very unhealthy. And, it was a now or never moment. I could have continued down a very destructive path, destructive for myself and people around me, and destructive for, people that see me online. I think I was, not a good role model, and I deeply regret that. So,
were you trying to be a role model? I find that interesting.
No, well, at the time in my delusion, I thought I was a role model for people that liked K-pop and wanted to be a K-pop star. So then I started going to church to try and take some time out to think about my life and think, what is the next step for me? And then, after spending some time going to church sessions and sermons, it made me realize, just try to find acceptance with who I am and stop doing all this craziness and try to get back to the real me. And that's the most important thing.
I've heard you mention the real you being a British man. But if you talk to other people, I think they might say the real them. And as I think you would agree, people are born gay. They don't choose to be gay. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So then why?
And I agree. And I believe that some people generally feel trans since they're born. I do believe that.
So God made them that way, right? So God would have made them that way.
I just believe that some people are born as trans, but my issue is kids being indoctrinated to transition when they didn't think about that before. So however you're born, that's the way you feel, then that's okay. But I don't believe in people that wouldn't think about these things being indoctrinated to change.
Because you said you want it, because when you're on these shows, you kind of make a point about being like, I'm going back and I'm being true to myself, implying almost that like this trans thing is just some kind of silly psychosis you had. But you're saying now being born trans is actually a state that God creates people in.
I'm saying that some people are born trans, some people are born gay.
Does God make people trans?
I'm not saying anything on that subject.
Why?
I'm just saying that some people everybody feels different. Everybody feels different.
Wait,
inside.
Why are you not unwilling to say that God makes people trans?
I'm just saying that people are born in different ways. They feel different. Some people might be born intersex. Some people are born gay.
You talk about God going back to how God or Jesus intended me. So I feel like this is an interesting point to resolve, because this is something that you bring up in your interviews. God makes people trans. I find that to be.
I never said God made people trans. I never said God didn't make people trans.
Does God make people gay? Does God make people gay?
I'm just saying that people are born in different ways.
Because you said you were born gay, and so
I was born a man, and then as a teenager I became gay. So it didn't happen from birth, but I struggled with I was very feminine. I struggled with my identity as a kid.
Was that your choice or God's choice?
There's a lot of influences that influence people in life.
God is all powerful, right?
No, perhaps I wouldn't have turned out the way I did if I wasn't bullied, or perhaps
is God all powerful?
Yeah, God is very powerful. Yes, absolutely.
All powerful.
But
is God all powerful?
God is all powerful, but there are.
So then He made you gay and trans people trans.
No, there are.
Why would God all powerful make someone so confused that they wanted to be trans? Well, actually, logically, it doesn't even make sense. If God is all powerful and He creates a being, and then this being lives through their lives and then says, "Oh, I want to transition," God made them that way. If God is all powerful, it's all part of His design. God wants people to be trans.
Well, there are societal, environmental.
God created society.
Yes, correct. But I'm just saying there are. There's a lot of human factors that influence.
God created
people.
humans.
If people are, yes, I know that, but if people are exposed to gender ideology,
God created gender ideology.
What I'm saying is a lot of these people would not have felt this way when they're born, but they're being pushed by society.
God created society
to think that they're going to transition.
God created society and transitioning as an operation. I mean, just where am I logically wrong? I don't see any logical conclusion that doesn't come to the idea that God made people trans.
I never said God made anyone trans. I just said that society and the environment
God made society.
People influence people.
He's all powerful, right? You said He's all powerful?
Yes, God is all powerful, but also humans have influences on other humans.
But He made humans.
This isn't going anywhere.
It's not, is it? Okay, let's go on. Do you believe that the Bible is against transgenderism, or what's your thought on that as a I guess a newborn Christian?
Well, the Bible was written a long time ago, and there are things in the Bible, such as in the Old Testament, that aren't relevant to today's society. We know that. So we have to adapt what was written 2,000 years ago to the modern day. But I'm not one for policing how adults live their lives. But I think transgenderism wasn't in the Bible because there weren't trans people visible back then. Of course, no. Look, I've even got this in my book. Even there was a Roman emperor that was trans. He used to dress as a woman. So we know there's instances, but I'm just saying in the Bible itself, there's no
influence
reference
him?
to that.
Did society influence the emperor to be trans?
Well, I wasn't alive then.
Well,
but,
hold on. You
he
wrote
was,
about it in your book. God dang, man.
yes, but so there were some Roman scholars that were around at the time, and taken from their writings, he used to dress as a woman. He used to act like a woman, and his wife would have to call him ma'am. Now, I wasn't around back then, so I don't know the exact details, but he thought he was a woman. So, maybe he could have been born like that. Some people are born like that, and they generally think that they're in the wrong body. So
you don't have an opinion on if the Bible supports transgenderism or not, or homosexuality even.
No, the Bible was written a long time ago.
Yeah, then why? But surely, I mean, why use the Bible as a guide for anything in your life if it was written so long ago? I don't understand that point.
Because Ethan, there's many teachings in the Bible that are very, very positive. About love and acceptance and kindness, and trying to help humanity. It was written a long time ago. So, like I said, the Old Testament.
There's also a story about this, sisters raping their dad.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The Old Testament
don't like that
has
one.
things.
Okay, I like your optimism. So
I'm saying the Old Testament.
We're not doing the Old Testament. Okay, cool. So we don't believe. Okay. I heard you when you're on these shows. I noticed you talk a lot about this specific story of Jesus that inspired you. How he helped the lepers when nobody else would, and that you, at the time when you found Jesus, you felt like the leper. That's a nice story.
Well, I thought it was a good analogy because I felt like for many years I was rejected by society. I was treated like an outcast, just like the leper. So I thought it was a good analogy to me. Actually.
I agree. Mm-hmm. It is a really good analogy. What other Bible stories do you like?
So there's the tale of the lost sheep in Luke, the parable of the lost sheep, where a sheep goes missing from a flock of 100, and the shepherd decides, should he stay with the flock or should he go and help this sheep? And he actually goes into the wilderness to help the sheep because he realizes that every sheep is one of God's children, so he needs to help them and be responsible for them.
Which verse was that? I want to read that one.
It's in Luke and Matthew.
Luke and Matthew? Do you know the number?
I can't give you the exact chapter, but you can look it up.
Is there any other Bible stories you like? I'm looking for good recommendations.
Yeah, there's also when Jesus met a Roman officer, and this Roman officer had a lot of power, but instead of abusing that power like many Roman officers did, he was actually kind to his servants. He had servants that were captured from battles, and they were working in his house, but he treated them the same he treated everyone else. So that's another great analogy that Jesus looked at people and helped people that helped other people, and kindness is very important.
Do you know the verse on that one so I can reference it?
I can't quote it off the top of my head.
You don't know where that one is?
Well, there's a lot of verses in the Bible, there's a lot of chapters, but I can tell you specific stories that I like.
Okay. I was just testing you, Ali. You know what I mean?
I know.
I was just trying to test you. I was trying to do a fast one on you. Yeah, but I want to ask, if we're talking about protecting kids, it all comes down to protecting kids, right? I mean, this is the thesis I've heard you explain. So as a Catholic, what do you think poses a greater threat, drag shows or clergy members?
Well, actually, there's a lot of scandals and very bad things that have happened with the clergy. And, I'm against all forms of abuse. So there's a lot that the Catholic Church has done in the past. There was even a cardinal that I believe he died earlier this year, an Australian cardinal that was accused of some horrific things. And there's a lot of that going on as well. So that needs to be addressed. And I will call that out as well as calling out drag shows that are sexualizing kids, because all forms of child abuse, whether it's in a church, whether it's in a religious organization or whatever, is wrong.
If you had kids, would you feel more comfortable leaving them at a drag story time, or with a clergy member?
If I had kids, I would actually be with them all the time. I wouldn't leave them anywhere.
You would never leave them?
No, because, as a parent,
hypothetically, you don't have to do it. I'm just talking hypothetically. Would you feel more comfortable leaving them with a clergyman, a member of the Catholic Church, or at the the drag queen story time hour?
Again, neither. I wouldn't want to leave kids anywhere.
It's just a theoretical. It's just theoretical.
No, I get that, but I'm just saying, even if it was leaving a kid.
Right, but you have to choose one. Which one do you trust more?
Well, I wouldn't leave my kid anyway. Like, I wouldn't leave a kid, and I think parents have a duty to protect
but
their
just
kids,
theoretically, which one would you choose?
I'm not going to answer that because I wouldn't choose either.
You wouldn't. Okay, let's put it this way. there's a dude named Barry. He's got kids. And he goes, I have no choice. I have to leave my kids either with the clergyman or at the drag show. I don't have a choice. Something crazy's happening. They're right next to each other. He says, where do I leave my kids? Where do you think Barry should leave his kids?
Well, again, I wouldn't want to leave kids anywhere.
But Barry doesn't have a choice. He doesn't have a choice. He's in this horrible predicament.
But Ethan, I'm not Barry. I can't answer that question.
Well, he's asking you for advice. Quick, Ollie, where should I put my kids?
You put me on the spot. I wouldn't, as an adult, I would say
Ollie,
to Barry,
as a
just
Catholic,
be with your kids.
As a Catholic, I find it very concerning that you are hesitant to even answer that question.
No, I'm saying it doesn't matter whether it's a Catholic church, a drag show, or even an after-school club where it's, the teachers aren't present. I wouldn't leave the kid anywhere. I wouldn't leave the kid at some weekend activity, like a sports activity. I think the parents should always be there.
Right.
So it's not a question of a church versus, whatever. It's a question of just in general, parents should always be with their kids.
But that's not reasonable. Parents can't always be with their kids. I mean, that's
no. Of course, it's not always reasonable. But I'm just saying, in an ideal scenario, because look, there are cases that happen, many cases that don't happen. But I'm just saying you've always got to be careful because there are people out there.
Well, let's assume that you're a good Christian and you say I'd leave them with the Catholic Church. We've talked about the number of kids who are doing irreversible transitioning in America. It's very, very small. We're talking like 250 a year by my estimate. And that's based on government data. I know you dispute it. There's a recent report that came out in France. And the reason I bring this one up is just because it's the most recent and comprehensive one. Quite disturbing. This came out, I believe, in 2021, called the Independent Commission on Sexual Abuse in the Church. It was a huge government commission to look at this openly and honestly and try to figure out what's going on. 2,900 and 3,200 clergy members were involved in sexual abuse of minors during that period in France. It's estimated that they abused around 330,000 kids. Now, if you do a percentage of that, and this is really kind of surprising to me, and tell me what you think. Assuming there are around 15,000 to 20,000 clergy members in France at any given time, the percentage of clergymen involved in abuse of minors would be 15 to 20%.
Yeah, that's absolutely horrifying. And also there's in Ireland as well, there was a lot of abuse that was covered up. And it doesn't matter.
Seems like that affects more kids.
That is equally wrong. Whoever exposes kids, it doesn't matter whether it's a church or not.
Raping a kid is equally as wrong as going to a drag show?
Look, it's equally wrong if someone abuses a kid. So that's what I'm saying here.
Okay.
So if a kid is being abused,
is there any history of a child being abused at a drag show?
When drag shows are sexually explicit,
is that the same as raping them?
That is also child abuse. I'm just saying if a drag queen performs a sexually explicit act in front of kids, that is abuse.
If we're worried about the kids, you're a member of an organization, which by my estimate, which again, it's just an estimate, but 15 to 20% of the clergy members are sexual predators. Why is it that you're focused on the drag shows and not the Catholic Church, when per capita and the volume is way more in the Catholic Church?
Well, the specific organization, Gays Against Groomers, is focused solely on the issue of indoctrinating children, exposing them to sex. If it was called, Catholics Against Groomers, that would be focused on that issue. But it's a specific issue. Not every organization can focus on every issue, but their job is to expose a specific issue within a specific group. And granted, like you said, there are in France, there was in Ireland some horrific cases. And, it's the job of the Pope and the Catholic Church to vigorously investigate that, because it's disgusting for any person, whether a clergy member or not, to abuse a child. It's absolutely wrong, and it should be investigated to the full. And every single victim deserves justice.
Me a little disingenuous when you're going to point, let's say, you've got the whole hotel, a whole building, it's on fire. But in the backyard, there's like a doghouse that's on fire. There's no dog in it, by the way. It's just a small structure. And you're telling the fire department, we need to put out the doghouse fire. Don't worry about the fucking massive apartment building that's on fire. Let's put out the doghouse. To me, that seems like you're focused on the wrong thing. What's the point of focusing on the doghouse when the whole building is on fire, right?
Well, no, I mean, I talk up on my Twitter about all forms of abuse. If there's somebody that abuses a kid, if there's a news story, I do share on that. So, but I'm just saying the specific organization Gays Against Groomers focuses on a specific subject. But you're right, all forms of abuse are incredibly wrong, and they should also get light shed on them, 100%.
Are you interested in firearm deaths of kids? Because that's the leading death, actually, of kids in America today.
Yeah, that's absolutely horrific. What we see every day with schools being shut up, it's absolutely horrifying.
Right, but somehow the drag show is
children
more...
should be. Ethan, we're on the same page.
I just don't understand why the drag show is more pertinent. Because you're doing a tour, right? You're doing all the right wings. You even wrote a book, for Pete's sake, called Gender Madness. Why is this topic so important when we're talking about protecting kids? And there's just these incredibly more pertinent issues, firearm deaths, the leading cause of death in kids, and you're talking about an organization with 15 to 20% of sexual predators, by my estimate. I just don't understand the focus on the drag show. Don't you think that the conservative movement is overly focused on transgender issues?
Well, I mean, there's you've just highlighted there are so many different issues in the world, and I'm trying to focus on one specific issue that we have seen a rise in the last few years, a very shocking rise, But equally, the issue of kids in schools, that is horrific. Every kid should be protected and safe going to a school. Just like if a kid is at a church, they should be protected. No child should be getting abused. But I'm specifically focused on one subject right now because I've struggled with gender ideology. I've seen the trend. This is my
But it's like the whole
knowledge.
right-wing apparatus is focused on that. Isn't that odd? I mean, it just seems odd that the entire right-wing apparatus is focused on trans issues. Do you find that odd? Why are they all so focused on trans issues?
Well, I mean, they talk about a lot of other issues as well, but what's happening at the moment is there is a lot of...
Right, they talk about a lot of issues, but I think we can all agree that that's kind of the most pertinent for them, right? Even in polls, even in polls, people say trans issues is the most important to them, of conservatives. Why is that?
Well, I mean, correct, because it is a very big subject right now, because we're seeing, every day these news stories of children with horrific stories at gender clinics. We're seeing, drag queens, not all drag queens, like I said, but we're seeing drag shows where they're doing very sexually explicit things. And it's become a real recent phenomenon in the last few years, and it's rising every day. So the reason conservatives speak up is because it's a rising issue. They're trying to counter it before it gets even more out of hand, because, we're seeing some very sad things. The Nashville police still haven't released the manifesto, but when Audrey Hale initially shut up that school, they said that the person's gender ideology may have played a role. They believe there was...
Oh, but that's silly. Because, I mean, a lot of the... Well, have I mentioned that you're selling a lunchbox with a trans woman on it?
I don't think you mentioned it, Ethan. No, I don't think you said it at all, actually.
Okay. So how do you if I haven't mentioned it, how do you justify this?
I've already gone through it.
Oh, we have talked about it. Okay. I'm just curious. Let me look at the photos. I mean, this is definitely for kids. It's pretty small. It can't even fit like a little bread in it, barely. And like, look how, I mean, these blueberries look monsters next to that. That's certainly for kids, right? Yeah. It's too small for an adult. What's that?
No, it's for anyone that likes K-pop.
For anyone that likes K-pop. But grown-ups, I mean, my God, what are they eating for lunch? 5 blueberries?
I would buy that because it's cute. I think grown-ups like that.
Wait, you would buy a lunchbox with a trans woman on it? Why would you do that?
It's a K-pop. It's an image of a K-pop. I would buy it because it's cute. I like K-pop stuff. I love Korean culture. It's a cute K-pop lunchbox.
Mm-hmm.
But clearly, you're not going to be buying it.
Well, just because I don't want to support you financially, like I said.
Thanks.
Have you seen Bella Delphine's new merch? Interestingly, it looks quite similar to what you're selling.
That's obviously, you've just photoshopped that.
Oh, wait, how dare you accuse me of that? Excuse me, Ollie. I'll have you know that's defamation.
Kind of obvious because it says Ollie Squad.
Do you think the New Testament is child appropriate?
Yeah, there's great teachings in the Bible that it's all about kindness and
Roman,
loving thy neighbor.
Roman 1:26-27. For this reason, God gave them up to dishonorable passions. For their women exchanged natural relations for those that are contrary to nature. And the men likewise gave up natural relations with women and were consumed with passion for one another. Men committing shameless acts with men and receiving in themselves the due penalty for their error. Why is it that you feel entitled to be gay? when it clearly
Well,
states
like I said,
that
like Ethan, like I said, sorry, like I said earlier, this book was written, a long time ago, where ideologies were different, and
Ollie,
you can't
come on, we
interpret.
can't play that game where you pick and choose the
Ethan,
ones
you
you
can't
like. That's silly.
you can't interpret every single line and take it as gospel. You have to choose the bits that are relevant to modern society and that are relevant
Well, what's
to
the point
a
of doing
person,
the whole
about
God's
kindness.
word thing if you're just going to pick the ones you like? I thought God's word was infallible. You can't be like, yo, God, I love you and you're infallible and all, but this one, it's a little outdated. That doesn't make a lot of
People
sense
just
to
like
me.
Ethan, just like with other textbooks from religions like the Quran, people interpret it differently.
Timothy 1:9 through 1:10 says, understanding this, the law is not laid down for the just, but for the lawless and disobedient, for the ungodly and sinners, for the unholy and profane, and for those who strike their father and mothers, for murderers, the sexually immoral, men who practice homosexuality, enslavers, liars, perjurers, and whatever else is contrary to sound doctrine. What about Corinthians 6:9? Or do you not know that the unrighteous will not inherit the kingdom of God? Do not be deceived. Neither the sexually immoral, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor men who practice homosexuality, nor thieves, nor the greedy, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor swindlers will inherit the kingdom of God. There's a lot of lines that speak against homosexuality, but not a lot of lines that speak against transgender. So why is it that transgender, you should be more concerned about the fact that you are a homosexual? That seems to be a great sin.
Well, again, like I told you, you don't have to interpret every single thing
But there's
from
a
the
lot.
Bible because
There's like a lot of anti-gay lines.
this was written in a time society
Okay, let
was
me ask you
completely
this
different,
then.
so you
What's
can't
what's
interpret
the
every single
difference?
word, but you can choose parts of the Bible that are relevant to you and the modern society and learn from them, like kindness, which is a very important message.
Do you think it's kind to tell a suicidal child that they can't transition?
No, but I think adults have a responsibility to help that child's mental health support. So whether that's therapy sessions or counseling.
If a child is suicidal, do you believe it's okay for them to transition?
Well, the problem with what you're saying is that's the argument that many gender clinics use to coerce parents to transition their kids. But you actually have to treat the real issues, which is maybe the kid is suffering from depression or they have struggles with other
What do you mean the
mental
real
health
issues?
issues.
No, but this is a real issue. Kids are suicidal because of their gender dysphoria. I mean, that's a real issue.
But Ethan, what I'm trying to say is if you put a vulnerable kid that's already struggling with a mental health on very high doses of hormones or puberty blockers,
well, no.
That is only,
no,
that's only going to lead to more
after they
issues.
decide. That's after they decide. This kid is suicidal. The only way to save their life, as you hear from a lot of people, is to help them transition. What is wrong with that?
No, correct. You hear that a lot, but
has it ever happened? Has a child transitioning ever saved a child's life?
Well, you need to address the mental health issues. If a kid is
has it ever saved a child's life?
Transitioning?
Yeah.
Yes, of course, there will be cases where.
So if it saved even one child's life, then where do you get off preventing this from happening? You say one child's all that matters. If you can admit to me that a child transitioning saved their life, even one of them, why would you support a movement that outlaws it? You support legislation that makes it illegal. Why is that?
Because firstly, these are kids, they cannot consent to this. They do not understand the long-term consequences. But you don't look at what happens later down the line, Ethan, like 6 years down the line.
We got to stick on this point. You said that transitioning has saved a child's life. Let's forget about all the other static. Let's forget about all the other static. Why is it that you would want to outlaw a medical procedure that saved a child's life? That's not kind, is it?
No, you have to support the kids' mental health, but you cannot put them on hormones.
Do you believe that it should be illegal? Do you believe that it should be illegal for kids to transition?
I believe for medical transitions, it should be 18 plus, yes.
Even if the kid is going to kill himself, as you admitted, it saved the child's life. You said that. So you believe this kid should kill themselves rather than transition?
Absolutely not. Don't try to put words in my mouth. Kids need mental health.
No, I'm not trying to put any words in your mouth. I'm just trying to reconcile. You are saying, on one hand, that transitioning saved the kid's life, and also saying that transitioning shouldn't be allowed until they're 18 plus. So this child has no recourse other than to kill themselves in this hypothetical situation we've created.
In this hypothetical situation, instead of that, actually take the kids, to somewhere that's a safe place where they can be surrounded by therapists.
Right, they do
and
that.
people.
But again, I don't want to focus on the static because this is a real situation. And let's say, even if it's just one kid, let's stay focused here, Ollie. One kid saved his life. You're telling that kid you cannot get that procedure. That's correct?
I'm saying that kids can't consent to this. Kids need better mental health support. So there should be a focus on
18
mental
plus.
health
You're
support
saying this
rather
kid
than
cannot get the
medical
procedure that
transition.
saved his life. That's what you're
I'm
saying.
saying that it should. I'm saying that 18 plus for all procedures on kids because kids cannot consent. So they need mental health support instead.
Right. So the kid would kill himself.
No, you give the kid.
But then
mental
why
health
did you
support
say that
and
it
protect
saves
them.
kids' lives, Ollie? Don't you understand? You're
I'm-
not making
you are-
sense.
I'm saying that there will be some kids that may feel better and feel like their life
No,
has
no,
been
no,
saved
no, no,
after
no.
that. But
You agreed with me, Ollie, just a few minutes ago that transitioning has saved kids' lives.
oh, like anything in life, it can save lives. But also, a lot of people
Like anything in
will
life?
become-
What does that mean?
A thing?
What
no,
else?
a lot of people will become suicidal later down the line because their body is completely messed up. There, so many different issues with their health that they're not being informed about. So it's about
99% don't regret it.
No, I'm just saying that it's informed consent. Kids can't consent. If
Well,
a kid is feeling that way,
kids can't consent to anything. What are we doing? We're
correct.
not allowing them to. Kids can't consent to go to church. Kid can't consent to go to school. Kids can't consent to anything. We as parents make the best decision we can for the welfare of the kid. Don't you agree? I mean, this whole idea of consent is kind of moot when you consider all the things kids do in their lives every day.
well, it's like a little kid that wants to be a dinosaur. Do you suddenly give them a surgery?
Do
to look
you
like a
think that
dinosaur?
wanting to be a
No.
dinosaur is comparable to gender dysphoria, which is a known medical condition?
I'm saying that some
You
kids go through
said
different
it's like
phases.
kids wanting to be dinosaurs, Ollie. I don't understand the comparison.
Well, no, it is. It's like some kids change their mind about certain things. They're not mature enough to make these decisions.
Do
So
you
a
think
kid might
wanting
say
to
their
be a
parents-
dinosaur is comparable to being trans?
I'm saying if a 10-year-old kid dresses up as a dinosaur every day, they tell their dad they're a Tyrannosaurus.
Has that happened? Can you cite that happening?
You've been speaking about theoretical things. I'm speaking about
Well,
something that's theoretical. I'm saying,
Well, we're talking about
would you
theoretical.
transition a child?
We're talking about theoretical situations, but they are real happening in the real world. There are kids whose lives are being saved because, and this is the small amount of kids who undergo it, very small amount, that do it under doctors' supervision and panels and stuff. It's saving their lives. This is happening, okay? People are not, as far as I know, and maybe you can correct me, saying I'm a dinosaur, I need to transition into a dinosaur.
No, I'm saying, the kids want different things. They don't understand or
I
comprehend.
notice you're saying I'm saying a lot. You say things, but you don't like to stay accountable to it. You say, no, I'm saying this. No, I'm saying this. No, I'm saying this. Why won't you give me definitive answers?
Well, I'm equating it. You know what? It is the same. If a child wants to be a dinosaur, you don't cut off their
it's the same.
body parts.
It's the
It's
same.
the same as being
Gender-
It's the same as medically transitioning a
Okay.
child and giving them
Good.
surgery. Mhm.
Good. I'm glad you said that. Gender dysmorphia is a known medical condition. Is there any literature about transitioning to be a dinosaur? Not that you know of. Right. But you said it's the same. But clearly it's not, right? Because
No, I'm equating
transitioning
a kid.
is
I'm
accepted by
equating
the
a kid.
Mhm.
Sorry, I'm equating a kid identifying in a different way. You don't just suddenly say, if a kid feels a certain way, oh, we're going to do this operation, we're going to give you hormones. Kids
Of
can't
course that
consent.
doesn't
If they
happen,
generally
Ollie.
feel like that their
That
whole
doesn't
life, do
happen.
it as an adult.
That doesn't happen. You have a child who's experiencing gender dysmorphia so severe that they're going to kill themselves. Dysphoria, excuse me. They're undergoing panels and doctors and stuff. And this kid, we know, and this has happened, either we intervene or the child kills themselves. What's your decision?
Most kids grow out of gender
That's not what I
dysphoria, so-
asked. Why can't you answer? Most kids
No,
do
I'm
not
saying
grow
most
out of
kids-
gender dysmorphia. That's a small number of them, and 99% who get the operations don't regret it. You have to answer this, Ollie. This is important. If there's a child that's going to kill itself unless it gets gender-affirming care, what is your decision? Give them the treatment or not?
No, you give them mental health support instead. You do not.
No.
put a kid on hormones.
Health support.
That's not what I'm asking. If this kid is suicidal, which is a known phenomenon, this happens. Do you let them get the treatment or do you make them wait till they're 18?
You give them other support instead. That's
So they
my
kill
answer.
themselves.
No,
How is
no,
that
you prevent
kind,
that because
Ollie?
You give them mental health.
How is that kind that you're letting children kill themselves instead of letting them get gender-affirming,
really...
life-saving care, which, by the way, happens only irreversible gender care, gender surgeries and stuff, only happens like 250 times a year.
No, it doesn't. It happens.
Well, you have no
times,
statistics to back that up.
Well, there's a clinic in Oregon. I can send you the statistics of. There's a clinic in Oregon that does at least 300 surgeries on kids a year. So that's just one clinic.
That's impossible. That's not true.
There's 60 clinics in the US that are pediatric.
Over years. Yes, 60 kids. Over years. So, but again, there's 50 million kids in America, Ali. That's not a lot.
But I'm saying there's 60 gender clinics that are performing these surgeries every single week across the country. So look it up and see how many.
Let's say that of the 1,000, there's 10 kids who are going to kill themselves. Do we let them get this treatment or not?
Again, you give the kids mental health support.
You're choosing for them to kill themselves, Ollie.
No, I'm not. Don't try to say that.
But you are. But that's what you're saying, Ollie.
I'm not saying
that. That is what you're saying. You're denying them life-saving, gender-affirming care.
No, I'm saying give the kids mental health support.
Yeah, you're saying use this avenue that doesn't work, that's not going to work to prevent you from killing yourself. You're telling them you cannot have the antidote that's going to save your life. You can only do the therapy that I approve of. You can only do the therapy that I say is okay for you, Ollie. You went through this whole gender transition. Why do you deny people the journey that you yourself had?
Because I had that journey as an adult, and even though I regret it, I was an adult. But kids cannot consent. So I'll say it again:
kids can't consent to anything. Kids can't consent to anything.
But Ethan, this is irreversible. We're not just talking about
not. Sometimes it's not. Most of the times it is reversible. And when it's not reversible, it's done under extreme care, under doctor supervision. You want this kid to kill themselves, Ollie. How do you live with that? How do you betray the community? The trans community that you're a part of? You sold yourself out for some attention and some money. You are dooming kids to kill themselves. How do you live with that? Before it was cute, silly stuff about transracial and BTS and pop stuff, and it was just silly nonsense about little racist stuff about Korean people having tiny penises. But now you're actually delving into transphobic, violent transphobia that is going to result in kids dying. You're going to have to reckon with that, Ollie.
No, absolutely not. You're trying to paint me out as saying this.
I'm only saying what you said.
Kids cannot consent. No, Ethan,
kids can't consent to anything.
Kids cannot consent to irreversible hormones or surgeries, Ethan.
Okay, a kid needs to get his leg removed because he has leg cancer. Should he be able to get the leg removed?
Well, if he has a cancer, yes.
Okay, so what's the fucking difference? He can't consent to have his leg removed. That's irreversible.
Well, many of these kids are being pushed into it. Many grow out of gender dysphoria. If you Google right now...
But I'm telling you, kids kill themselves if they don't get this treatment. In the rare case that it's that severe, about 250 a year.
Well, show me... Okay, pull up a case then.
I'm sure we can do that. That's not a problem. Give me 1 second. Gender-affirming care is mental health support.
There are other ways. There are other ways of helping kids.
The American Institute of Psychiatry and Kids Health Pediatrics, they all agree that the correct care for children with dysmorphia is gender-affirming care. Do you know more than Pediatrics Association and Psychiatrists Association?
Yeah, because all of these companies, they made $2.2 billion transitioning kids last year. So it's a multi-billion-dollar industry with a lot of powerful.
So people make money from it. So therefore, we shouldn't let kids save their lives.
No, you can provide. I'm not going to keep going on about this same thing. You can provide kids with the right mental health support that doesn't include putting them on harmful hormones that can cause irreversible issues. And when they
You're right. We should make it free. People shouldn't be charged for it. No,
I'm just not going to keep going on about the same thing, Ethan. I need to go anyway. It's quite late.
I want to tell you something. You really have sold your soul in this one. You know what I mean? Like before it was cute and innocent, but this new one is really sick. And I mean, the galls of you to sell a fucking lunch pail with a trans person on it while telling people that they're grooming kids. I mean, you're just a fucking hypocrite, dude.
Ethan, you said some horrific comments about Ben Shapiro saying that he should be gassed like in the Holocaust. So you shouldn't be.
I didn't say that. I said,
you
I'll tell you exactly what I said. And how dare you say such a...
You said that.
I made a joke that he's perpetuating anti-Semitism, and therefore, if there's another, then he can go, And I'd be
But it's
happy
not something
to.
to
I'd
joke
be
about,
happy to
Ethan.
go
It's
right
not
behind
something
him.
to joke
I am
about.
Jewish though, so chill out.
No, I know that, but I'm just saying it's not something to joke about. So, when you're trying to criticize for me for certain things,
So-
you've also said some things that are very harmful as
Well,
well.
hold
so you should
on.
also take accountability.
So you're admitting that what you say about trans people is offensive?
No, I'm talking
Well,
about
how
my
is it
past
comparable to what
behaviors
I
have
said?
been harmful. I'm talking about my past behaviors, have been harmful.
I'm
but
not talking
addressing
about your
that now
past
and
behavior.
help
I'm
people.
talking about what you're doing now that endangers children because you're trying to make a
Now
quick
I'm helping
buck.
people. Now, no, I'm helping people, Ethan.
You're helping Tucker Carlson spread propaganda that's going to kill trans people. And you're selling a book called Gender Madness. After you, how long have you been how long have you been a man? How long have you been detransitioned? And you're writing a book already?
It's been 7 months.
7 months, Ollie? I mean, you were trans
Ethan,
for years. How are you going to spend 7 months as a man and then presume to tell people how to live their lives? That's doesn't even make sense, Ollie. That's not enough time to give me an informed decision about what it means to transition, especially when you lived as a trans person for so long.
Yeah, but the book is about how I got to where I was, what led me to that, and how people struggle with different identities. It's actually a self-help book, so it's very positive, empowering about different ways people can help themselves.
Gender Madness. Here's your best friend, Jamie Mitchell, who's the founder of Gays Against Groomers, supporting... well, here, just watch.
What's happening now would make, I think Joseph Mengele, I believe that was his name, the Nazi doctor, this puts him to shame.
Do you believe that's an appropriate analogy?
Well, Joseph Mengele tortured and performed horrific medical procedures on kids. What
Jewish
they're doing
kids
today.
during the Holocaust.
He also committed a genocide against trans people, by the way.
He committed a genocide against trans people as well.
He killed
well,
a lot
if
of
jokes
LGBT
about the
people.
Holocaust are off the limit, Ollie, let's be consistent.
They are basically using an entire generation
How dare you?
of children as lab rats for this sick ideology. And
she sounds
they're
like
full steam
him right now.
Like
any abuse,
like
any
Joseph
abuse
Mengele.
of kids,
and
any experimentation on kids is wrong.
And a threat to that.
You've been very open about, your conservative voice as well. Is it hard to be, to have a conservative voice now?
Yeah, I mean, I am personally conservative. I've actually had an online presence as the Gay Who's Straight on Instagram primarily for over 6 years. And we.
Do you believe that doctors are performing Nazi-like experiments on trans kids?
Doctors are experimenting on kids.
To what end? What is the experiment?
Any medical mutilation on kids is bad. And,
An experiment underlies a thesis. What is their thesis?
I'm saying there's no long-term data on how does this affect a kid's
Yes, there
body
is. 99% don't regret it. 27.
How does this affect a kid 20 years down the line? Because
they're happy.
See issues
99% are happy.
We see issues
27
with their bone
studies.
density. Look at the study by Dr. Bradley, Canadian. She was the pioneer for performing these gender-affirming cares on kids.
What if I told you Dr. Bradley was a quack?
Well, they're all quacks. Anyone that experiments on kids in the first place is a quack.
All right, Ollie. We're gonna anyway. Thank you for spending your time. I do appreciate you coming on.
But no, it's good to talk.
It was something. But I do think that since God created,
Ethan,
God created trans people. You know what I mean? And when kingdom come, you're gonna have to answer for what you're doing. This is not kindness. Jesus does not hate trans kids.
Jesus doesn't hate anyone, but what I've been saying throughout the interview, and we've spoke about this already, is that I'm simply speaking up about we shouldn't do this to kids. I know you're trying to make the argument that this can lead to.
It's not happening to kids, Ollie. It's 250 a year.
It's not 250.
Yes, it
there
is.
Are thousands.
You're just making that up. That's bullshit.
No, you can look on Google.
I've looked up every single thing you've said. I fact-checked every single thing you said. It's all propaganda. It's all lies.
But look at
I've
Dr.
systematically dismantled every single point you have.
But you can look at Dr. Gallagher in Miami and see how many operations she does on kids. That's just one clinic. There are 60 clinics plus that are doing this. So imagine every single clinic added up. They're profiting from this. It's $70,000 they make from a girl.
All right, Ollie London, who is in favor of kids killing themselves. Thank you for calling. But
it's not even funny to joke about things like that.
Oh, I'm not joking, my friend.
I've been talking about mental health support. That's the real issue here. We need to help people with their struggles and not be putting them on medication.
Ollie London, who's in favor of kids killing themselves.
Ethan, Not cool. Right. Anyway, thank you for your time
Well,
today.
it is not cool. Actually, that's putting it mildly. It's actually demonic.
No, it's not cool that you're trying to say that I'm pro for
but
that.
that's
You're just
literally
putting words
what
into my
you're
mouth
doing.
for
It's what
clickbait.
you've said, my friend.
No, it's not. It's about, I've been saying about we need to give mental health support instead of putting all of these kids on
Gender
hormones.
affirmation
Anyway,
is mental health support.
We'll agree to disagree, and good luck.
Okay, you're a demon.